Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sean Amsbury. I am the Friendly Neighborhood Help Desk guy. I've been around for a few years. And today we are going to be talking about the accordion functionality on Oregon web pages. The web part is built for V4 sites. It's unavailable in V3 sites. But as just kind of an added-on bonus, I'll show you how you can get close to an accordion functionality. It does require some HTML in a V3 page. That part is also included in the documentation that was written about this, and that is available on GovSpace. So today we're going to talk about, and at the end of the class you should be able to create and populating an accordion list. The accordion list is what generates the content for the accordion functionality. And we'll be able to add that accordion web part into a page. And that is as easy as this gets. So here's what we're looking at. The accordion is going to allow us to make our pages a bit more concise. I'm hoping that it's going to be a good replacement for the current replicant page, because that page layout is not available in V4. Oregon.gov has grown up and surpassed that era now, so this should offer a real good way to organize pages in a similar way, where we have essentially their links, they're more like buttons now, for various headings for information on the page. And as we click on one of these headings, the content involved with the heading becomes available to the reader. If content like this is selected, we've got one of these buttons that's been clicked, and we click a different button, then the first one automatically collapses, and the next one that we click expands. And so the page never does get real long and cumbersome for the end user. It stays fairly concise, and they can see only what they've asked to see at a given time. And so how do we get it? Well, we create an accordion list. The accordion list has several tags, or several columns, excuse me. The two most important of them are title and accordion content. Now, all of the columns need to be used, but these are the two that are going to show up to the end user. The title column entry is going to be what's shown as a heading for the functionality. That's the part that you click on. And then the accordion content is the part that is going to be exposed when the title is clicked. Once we have our list, all we need to do is plop an accordion web part on the page and then configure it to show the accordion list items that we want it to show. Do a real quick explanation of that. In the list, you notice that we have hashtag and tags. I have also added a custom column to this one called color. That's just an arbitrary label to be able to sort these things and filter them a little more deeply. The tags allow the web part to identify which items to show. Your accordion list can be very long, and each accordion web part that you put on a page can show 1, 2, 11, 20 accordion items, and it does not have to show all of them at once. So you can make these lists kind of a catch-all kind of a deal, especially if you've got content that is applicable to more than one page or sub-site in your site collection. And in each page that you use the web part on can filter this list differently and show different pieces of the list. And we'll see that when we start to configure that web part. Let's just dive in. This is our site template demo site. And you can see that we have, right now I have 2 of these accordion lists. I played with this a little bit. One of them has 10 items, the other one has 6. We're going to stick with the accordion without the 2, or the original accordion list. But I'll show you that if you do not yet have an accordion list, you will need to make one. And so if I use the Create button. Incidentally, that lends to the idea that this functionality, creating this list, does require design or full control permissions. If you have people that are under contribute permissions, they will need your help or have to have their permissions escalated in order to create a list in your site collection. And you can see when we open the Create window, the first option that we have is this accordion list. And so we definitely want the accordion list type that's already defaulted with all the various columns that are required for the list to work. And we'll name it. And by default, it is loaded with 3 items of demonstration content. If you want to, you can delete those list items so they're not in your way. They are tagged as demo, so they shouldn't get in your way. And what this will do is give you a good reference just in case this list gets a little quirky or out of hand. The demo items will give you a good reference of what the list expects and what kinds of things can be used. You can also put an empty accordion web part, like a new accordion web part on the page. It preloaded itself with these default items. So you can see what a default configuration looks like as well. It's kind of a good starting point to get back to. So if we're going to add items, which you will want to, of course, you'll see that these columns, every entry field in a SharePoint list item is a column. And these columns are the default ones that you have. If you know lists and if you're comfortable with lists, you are more than welcome to add columns to your accordion list. You can be creative that way. You can offer a lot of filtration or organization by using multiple columns. If I want to add an item, all I've got to do is click here to enter new contact. You can see this is a rich text area. You can put any text that you like into the content. Again, this content field is what's going to show up when the header, the accordion heading is clicked. So it will expand to show whatever is in here. You can put images in here. You can put tables. You can do almost anything you want. The thing that I found you can't do is actually put another web part in here. Nested web parts don't get along very well, so that is a no-no on the accordion list item. You can't. I thought it would be neat to be able to nest accordions, but no, we can't do that. So just one of the limitations. But anything else, almost you can. You can, put your items from your reusable content list in here. You can format these into links. You can do pictures, tables, and of course your normal text formatting. The hashtag. Hashtag is it's like an anchor on the page. If you're familiar with HTML, this would be an A tag, a name to be specific, and it gives a web page linking to this page. It gives it a location. So ideally, it depends on browser functionality, of course, but ideally, the idea is that another site or another page could link to this page and have this accordion item open on the page when it comes to it, so that if you're looking to a specific idea on the page, that it would be pre-opened with that content visible to the end user. And so your hashtag, it should be unique. You should be able to easily recognize or identify what it's for so that you can link to it if you want to. The tags are the part where the web part will organize the accordion items for you. If you have these tags, any web part that you put on a page that you configure to include any of these 3 this particular item will be included in that list on the page. And so tags work the same way they do for a regular content query web part. That's what the Accordion item is built on. It filters like a content query web part, and it has some styling involved so that the actual content shows up when the title is placed. And sort order, of course, you're going to want that. These do not have to be unique. If they're not unique, then the web part will organize these in the order that they show up in the list. So if you have a particular order that, let's say you have 4 items that are tagged blue, and you want them to show up in a particular order, you can either make sure that they're in that order on the list, or you can give them a sort order of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so everything that you call with blue, or every time you call blue tags into a page to be displayed in Accordion, it will pay attention to this sort order, and number 1 will always be at the top of the list. Number 4 will be at the end. So not necessary for them to be unique here. You can have a 1, 2, 3, 4 tagged blue, a 1, 2, 3, 4 tagged red, a 1, 2, 3, 4 tagged dark, whatever. It's only important that they, if you want them in a specific order, to establish that with your sort order. Once you're done inputting, just like any other list item, you click Save, and your item will be added to the list. Adding a column to this list for an additional filtration purpose is fairly easy. Again, this is going to take, I believe this also requires design or full control. And what you want to do is get into the list settings. And in this list settings page, towards the middle of the page, you have the list of columns that are involved in this list. You add a column by probably creating this. If you know there's already a SharePoint column involved in your site that will fit the bill and not conflict with anything else, then by all means you can use that. But probably creating the new column is the least confusing way to add a column to this site, or to this functionality, excuse me. So I'm going to create a column. I'm going to call this column Extra. There we go. And then you have to pick what kind it is. You need to be a little careful. If you want to use this for filtration, it's best to use a single line of text or a multiple line, or a choice. Multiple lines of text is one column type that is very common, but it is not sortable for SharePoint. It won't show up in the list of fields available for a web part to sort by or filter by. I don't believe that hyperlink or picture, calculated, or actually any of these lower, from hyperlink or picture down, I don't believe are allowed for filtering in a web part. If you're unfamiliar with that term, you'll see it in just a little bit when we get into the web part, and you'll probably see why SharePoint limits to certain very simple entries. Choices, that you can use choice, no problem. That offers you either a bullet list or a drop menu. As you change these choices, then the possible configurations change also. You can see that just went from when I choose single line of text, all it wants is a description and the management features of the column. When I go to choice, you can see that changes automatically, and now it wants not only the description and the management values, it also wants me to establish what are the choices that are available here, and is the user allowed to fill in a value here, their own value. And so just for simplicity's sake, I will go a single line of text. You can enter a description if you want to. It can be required or not, doesn't matter. SharePoint doesn't care. That is totally up to you and your management of information. Unique values, again, totally up to you and your management of information on these. And do you want a default value? And so that's as simple as it is. And I click OK. and SharePoint will add it. See, we now will have the extra column right here. It tells me that it's single line of text, and so apparently that went correctly. I go back to the list view so I can see my entries, and you see that extra is now included way over here as my additional column. Of course, I haven't gone back and filled that column in, so it is blank. There's no values there, and that's fine. That's what we expect to see. Okay, so that is the list. It's very simple to create. It can be very simple to populate, and having it is required to make this functionality work for V4. So this is just a page. These, in my opinion, they tend to look better on a page that has the larger content well. If you have any tabular data, like remember we could add tables to these. If you have any tabular data, you might want to take that into consideration as to whether you want to use this in a narrow content area. You want to make sure that your content is readable easily. So that is a concern. So I've got any kind of a page here that I can drop a web part on. I'm going to edit that page, and I'm going to simply insert a web part. And one of the things to watch for is the category that you get the web part from. Right here at the top, it's called Lists and Libraries. And what that does is it allows SharePoint to show you any list or library on any page. Now, sometimes that'll run you into problems because it'll spark you for authentication because not all lists are open to public viewing. And you see that their first choice right there is Accordion. And so, well, my goodness, there it is. That's what I need. No, actually, it's not. What you need is to go to the Oregon V4, I believe it is. Is there V4? Yep. The Oregon V4 web parts. And at the top of that list is an Accordion web part. This does not look directly at the list. This is, again, it's a glorified content query web part that is stylized to look at the list in a special way. And so to choose that web part, we want to go down to Oregon V4 category and choose the Accordion web part. I click Add. Lo and behold, it lands on the page. Notice it is populated. This has some default items in it. And like, again, any other web part, we need to open this up for editing to be able to configure it correctly. So once we've opened it, we've got a very familiar look here that we need to consider. The query is the first one. But where do we go in query? Here's the answer to that question about how do you point the web part at a list. This field right here. Now you can browse to a list, and what that does is that opens up your SharePoint site in a browsing window, just like your, or very similar anyway, to the Windows Explorer, where you look at libraries and folders and documents. This is similar. You look at sites and lists and libraries. Our list was in the help site, and we were going to work with the top Accordion list in that site. So I choose that, and I click OK. That's the first step, getting the right list to display. You can also, by relative URL, you see this starts with a slash, and the site collection here, the subsite here, and then lists, and then which list is it. So you can hand type that in if you're comfortable that way. You know exactly where your list lives and what its name is. You can type the relative URL to your list right in here. What relative URLs do is they keep the web part looking at the right place whether it's in authoring or whether it's in production. So it's not hard-coded. If you hard-code this to like a fully qualified URL starting with https://www-auth, etc., then what will happen is this web part, when it renders on the page in production, it'll ask somebody for authentication because it's hard-coded, so to speak, to look at the authoring list that people have no right to look at. So if you use a relative URL here, it assumes that the domain is consistent with the current page. By domain, I mean this part here, where you would have Oregon.gov as your domain. It assumes that if you're looking at an Oregon.gov site, then the list is under Oregon.gov too. So if you start with a relative URL, that'll solve some issues before they begin. As we continue to configure this part, we have list type. It's a custom list. That's what we want to show. We want to show all content types. We don't use audience targeting. That's more along the lines of the old intranet purposes for SharePoint. And then we have filters. The filters work in such a way they are inclusive for the most part, where the tag field or column, you're picking the column here with tags, either contains or is equal to, and no more filter. I want to use and here. This can get confusing because one of these will include the rest, which your end item here is always no filter. And so if it includes it, or is opened up, I may be proven wrong in a minute here, but I believe if or is opened up, it'll say, okay, I want everything with the alt tag or everything that's not defined. And so essentially what you're doing is calling everything. And so I believe it's and that I want here. And so that's the simplest way you can do this, where tags contains a specific tag. So let's just take a look and see. I just clicked apply, take SharePoint just a minute, and you can see the change that took place. Now, what's this new item here? Obviously, alternate, alternate, alternate. Okay, that makes sense. Alt tags, right? Well, why do we have one called new? I'm going to flip back to the list. The item called new also contains alt in its tags. And so regardless of the title, this might make sense, alternate, 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 fine, but we also have an alt tag on a odd item here. So it looks specifically at the tag. Now, if I had set that to look at title contains alt, each one of those title fields contain the letters ALT. But new does not. And so that is the functionality we look at when we filter for specific items. I could also change this back to tags and say, and I want to look at tags contain demo. Now it only shows me the things that qualify under both of those rules. The tags, an item whose tag contains alt and tag contains demo. And now we're down to one item because new is the only item in the list. I'm going to flip back and look at that list again. New is the only item whose tag field contains both new and alt. And I click or instead of and. Now I apply those changes, and you'll see that now the setting is far more inclusive. I get all of the items that have either alt or demo as tags. You can use any column shown here to do your filtering with. Let's see, is there any in presentation that you need? You can set a sort order if you want to. Is it going to go high to low, low to high? You can group items here by a specific tag. So let's say if I wanted to group them by color, and again, you're ascending or descending. How many columns do you want these things to show up in? And then you do want to keep styles as accordion, or else it won't work. If you change styles, then the functionality will be at least altered significantly, if not destroyed. And so this depends upon the accordion style sheet to work. The only other thing I would suggest doing is the appearance should be Chrome type none. If you wind up with some weird blue lines and a blue title, you want to make sure that Chrome type is set to none. When we click OK, now you can see what the grouping does. We're now grouped with the color yellow, orange, green, etc., and all of these items here are under their grouping column value. When we click, it opens up. And when we click a different one.
This is Linda. Does it matter where you put that accordion list? Does it have to be on the home page, or can it be on a subsite?
This particular one is in a subsite, and the only thing to be careful of is by default, the accordion web part will point to the list at the root of the site. And so if you've created a custom list in a subsite, just repoint the accordion web part to the list that you want. You can have multiple accordion lists for different purposes if you like. The web part just has to be pointed at the right one.
What are some good uses for these accordion lists?
I like them for replacing replicant pages, where you have the links at the top of the page to content down further on the page. This is a very clean way to replace those pages when a site goes from V3 to V4. I could also see it being used as a frequently asked questions page. It may also be used, a specific reference comes to mind. The agriculture department has many, many programs that operate within its influence. And a page like this could take and say, okay, well, here's a listing of our programs, and each one of those programs would be a title, and then a description of the program would open up if the title was clicked, and within there you can, again, have an image, and you can identify links to different pages or different resources that program may have to offer. And so it's a way of consolidating what could be a very long page into something concise that offers a lot of information, but that the end viewer doesn't have to scroll clear to the bottom of the earth to get to what they're looking for.
We have another question here.
I understand the question. Is this applicable to the current SharePoint? I assume that you are still under the V3 design, and no, these lists and web parts only work in V4. But at the end of this, I am going to show you and explain a little bit about how to get a similar feature to work in V3. It does require HTML code, but you can make it. The V3 is less elegant, the V3 version of that. Now, you could stylize it if you have your expertise in-house to be attractive like the V4 functionality is. But the basic works will work for you. You can style these any way you want to. Some of you are familiar with, I'll open this up, the header and footer field in your V3 pages. If you scroll down below your content area, if you scroll down, you have a header content and a footer content. This is where you can actually use CSS and interject some JavaScript into your pages, and it won't get stripped out by SharePoint. And so this helps. The this functionality that I put on the page depends upon the CSS that has been entered down here. Now, I'm not going to teach a class on HTML and CSS, but the basic stuff is included in your in the documentation on this subject on GovSpace. And so you actually have this snippet of CSS, and you have this. If we get in here, I've just clicked into the content section, and you'll see the HTML behind this. You have a snippet of HTML that looks very much like this that you can paste into this page, and it's a starting point, just in case, you know, there are some V3 sites that are going to be around for quite a while here. And if you want to use this functionality, you are more than welcome to. And it is, like I say, your starting point is on GovSpace. We're not yet at a point where we can really teach or support HTML, but I like this one enough that I'd really like to help you use it. And you can see that the functionality is not, I got to save the page to make it work here. The functionality is nowhere near as elegant just kind of a pop. It just shows up and then doesn't. This one does successfully close. There's no list associated with this. This is all hand churned. The HTML goes in, and you know, I can add to this if I want to. I have my items here, and the functionality doesn't work in the editing mode of the page. And so, unfortunately, I have not been able anyway to get these sections to expand for me when I'm in editing so that I can add to it simply. But I can add whatever I want to it here. I can copy and go down and add another item. Call this one item 4. I can do it again, and I can say elephant there and change it, and now I have item 4, an elephant. The point of this is not to show you how to edit HTML. It's that once your basic structure is there, you can fairly easily go into the HTML and add new text to it if you like. It is fully, this part of it is fully rich content. You can do anything here that you can do in HTML. You can add tables to it. You can add images to it, whatever. It just has to be done in that HTML editing window. So, again, I want to emphasize that the starting point for this kind of functionality is in GovSpace, in the document having to do with the Accordion web part. For those of you who may not be familiar, it is the eGov training space, and this document is included in both the V4 and the V3 category for this reason. So, any questions anybody wants to ask me about this particular functionality having to do in the V3?
Hi, Sean. It's Raylan.
Hi.
So if I wanted to do something, I would just say that I have modest HTML skills. And if I wanted to do something, the thought occurred to me that I would just go into V3, create it on a blank page. Let's say I wanted to do a table or whatever. Once I had it the way I wanted, couldn't I then just go into the code, copy that element of the code, and then paste it into the page where I want the accordion?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
If you can identify within the accordion HTML where you want to put it, which section of the accordion, all that, then absolutely, that should work as good as anything else. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
This was simpler than most, and so we have We're getting out early, essentially, and I hope it's easy enough for you to use and feel comfortable using in the V4. And if you have need for help, give me a call. See if I can give you a hand using it in V3 as well. See if we can, somehow without spending hours or days of time to create HTML, see if we can point this in the right direction and get it to work for you in V3 if you're interested. So more than open to helping with that. I appreciate your time. Hope it was useful for you, and I hope you all have a great day.